Welcome back. We are in conversation with the Finance Minister of India, Mr. JAITLEY. The issue of the income disclosure scheme, it has aided the government in many ways. You've been, in some senses, able to, tell people that the government has actually acted against black money. But what is the road ahead? Are there any other creative ideas that the government is thinking of?
You see, consistently in the last 2.5 years, the very first decision was to constitute the SIT.
Right.
Every decision we have taken is to try and make India, through persuasion, through law, through compliance opportunities, and even through fear, to make India a tax-compliant nation.
Right.
After all, payment of taxes is necessary if we are to eliminate poverty. Payment of taxes is necessary if rural India is to develop. These are all meant for a positive national purpose. So every person who evades taxes is not discharging his national obligation. As a result of which, we are trying to make India, through every measure, a more tax-compliant country. And I'm sure the GST eventually in indirect taxes and its cascading effect on the behavior of direct tax assessees is also going to be to persuade people to become more and more tax compliant. Technology, global measures. After all, it was never happening earlier that people who had hidden money in secret accounts outside the country, their names could be published by a newspaper.
Right.
So now there is no such thing as absolute secrecy, and time is not far away when you will have real-time information coming in. So it's always going to be better advised, pay your taxes.
But has the income disclosure scheme also expanded the government aided the government in expanding the tax net? Are there new assessees?
It would. I really can't disclose about the identity of the assessees because secrecy was one of the conditions of the scheme. But the fact that the average declarant has declared 1 crore. So what happens to that chief minister who was saying small traders? Well, small traders don't have 1 crore of tax payable.
Right.
So 1 crore tax payable means he had 2.5 crores of unaccounted money. So his real wealth was in several big crores. Now these are not small petty shopkeepers or traders. These were people who had substantial amount of assets, and the fact that they've been able to pay 1 crore of tax. So if 65,000 people have declared 65,000 crores, that means the average declarant is 1 crore rupees. So these were people who disclosed it, and many of them would be tax assessees, but they had income which had escaped this assessment.
Right.
So they've used the compliance window. Those who have not used it, if the information reaches the tax authorities, it's not a great information for them.
Well, in addition to the revenues that the government will be generating by taxes, as far as money from auctions is concerned, as far as the telecom auctions are concerned, the response has not been up to expectations.
No, you see, one category of spectrum has not been auctioned. It didn't find buyers, but that's the most sold spectrum. So probably the telecom department and the TRAI will revisit the issue and decide this. But I'm sure eventually managing the fisc will not going to be difficult. In any case, this year and next year, the tax paid out of the IDS itself gives me a reasonable amount of cushioning.
And is the government confident about the 20,500 crore rupees disinvestment target?
No, our disinvestment target this year is far higher. And I think the way the buybacks are taking place and the disinvestments are taking place, we probably will achieve a much higher disinvestment figure than ever in history.
You find the market to be conducive for disinvestment at this point in time?
Well, the Sensex is already 28 to 29,000.
And you expect that to continue?
And it's only in certain metal stocks that the difficulties are there.
And what is the status of the Sutti stakes sale?
Well, that's an option which we have, and we'll exercise the option if it's necessary.
Only as a last resort?
I'm not using any phrases. That's an possible option that the government has.
And also there's one area there isn't much clarity on, is the issue of the non-performing assets. All the banks have identified their NPAs, but now...
the banks have identified the NPAs.
But nothing has been done about it.
No. Laws have been changed by the government and parliament. Policies have been changed by the RBI, even to transfer managements, to transfer ownerships. We have all the systems in place. We've identified the sectors also. We've taken steps to rectify the health of those sectors also. I think the last stage remains that a few test cases there will have to be transfer of ownership, even if it's a compulsive transfer of ownership, for which you need a buyer standing in front of you.
Right.
I think that's the challenge before the banks at the moment. And I'm sure some cases will happen that way.
And how will you aid smaller businesses? Because when you're talking about non-performing assets, there are...
Well, to aid smaller businesses, the banks must have enough money to support growth and support businesses. Now, if monies are blocked in non-performing assets...
But some smaller businesses are also getting impacted by the new NPA guidelines, even though it might all...
You see, there is no question of aiding. As far as, after all, these are not monies to be distributed for free. After all, if there is an NPA, every effort has to be made to make it a performing asset, and the government must recover the banks must recover their monies.
Well, Mr. Jaitley, my last question to you is that during the course of your interactions in Canada, in United States of America, what was the key message that you sent out to the...
Well, I think the key message which we sent out was already there. And the key message is that India today is a different place for investment. And in the midst of a global slowdown, it's probably the fastest moving growing economy, and therefore it offers you returns which you don't get elsewhere. And the investors are not philanthropists, they're businessmen. They can see the writing on the wall themselves.
Well, we were in conversation with the Finance Minister of India. Thank you for watching.